It's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
And this is The Big Show. I'm Michael Traikos. With me today, we've got Editor-in-Chief of the Hockey News, Ryan Kennedy. And we've got all things Colorado Avalanche, Mr. Denver himself, Drew Shore. How you doing there, Drew?
I'm doing great. What's going on, guys?
Doing okay. A couple days away from, or I guess a day away from Thanksgiving. So, dun, 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 we're here. I expect the trade hotlines to be open real soon. And one of those teams that's probably working the phones more than others are the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah, the Vancouver Canucks are open for business. And if you thought that drama from last year was gone away just because JT Miller is no longer on the team, got news for you. It seems like everyone and their neighbor is up for grabs right now. According to GM Patrick Allvin, pending UFAs Evander Kane, Kiefer Sherwood, Teddy Blueger, Derek Forbort, and I guess we might as well include non-UFA Quinn Hughes, all apparently up for grabs, which, if I'm Thatcher Demko and Brock Besser, I'm kind of like, why didn't you tell me this a year ago before I signed? But Jim Rutherford has said, we have to make this team younger. We have to get this team going in a different direction from where we've been. Let's start it off with Ryan here. Ryan, surprised to hear these comments, or were you kind of expecting it? And which would you prefer? This team to kind of make a push to try to, do something while Quinn Hughes is still there, or, let's start the rebuild and let's start it now.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by the comments because Jim Rutherford is one of the most honest men in hockey, and he just puts it out there, right? And that's why we love him. Also, yeah, I think that they should start the rebuild. Sometimes you have a window and you just don't get there, right? We've seen it with teams before where, you try to build to win a Stanley Cup. Not everybody can get there, and it's really difficult. But I think, particularly with the backdrop of, Quinn Hughes, potentially joining his brothers in New Jersey one day, I think, the writing's kind of on the wall, and the fact that things have not worked out at all this season. I think you do have to see what's out there, and I kind of agree. Get younger, because things are really shifting in that Western Conference, especially in the Pacific Division. For me, if I'm another team, Kiefer Sherwood is probably the player I would go after because he's not making a lot of money, so you can get him under the cap. He actually has more goals than Brock Besser this season, which also might point out why Vancouver's not doing great. But we also know that Kiefer Sherwood hits everything, in his path, and some things that weren't in his path, which is why teams would love to have him. And, he can clearly give you some secondary scoring. So I think on a good team, if he's in your bottom six, that's the kind of player where you say, like, if we're going for a Stanley Cup, that's what our bottom six needs, is a guy who can actually produce, but also give you that energy and physicality.
Drew, a couple of years ago, this Vancouver team was the best in the Pacific. Now you're looking at the standings. Only two teams in the West have worse records, and that's Nashville and Calgary. So, not the company you want to be hanging with. What do you make of the Canucks, and what direction would you pursue?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I feel bad for my boy Adam Foote. I think that, their roster, if you look at it from what they had a couple years ago, they had Bo Horvat, one of the best two-way centers in the league, JT Miller, along with some of the current good players that they have now. And like Ryan said, it felt like they were a team that kind of like was aiming to try and win the Stanley Cup and has just kind of botched their rebuild at a couple different phases and now is in a tough spot. I think I like Kiefer Sherwood as a player. I would be a little bit concerned giving him a longer deal just based off of, I think he's shooting at 28% right now. I think last year he set a career high, which scoring 19 goals. But to me, I think he's a guy who can consistently get you 10 to 15 goals. And like Ryan said, hit everything. And he's be a great fit on a third line of a team who has a chance to win the Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm. The perfect rental. Because I agree with you, Drew. When he hits the free agent market, somebody could make a tremendous mistake.
Oh,
But
somebody,
as a rental, he could be the perfect rental.
yeah, 100%. And I mean, credit to the player, right? Like he deserves for someone to make that mistake on him with how hard he plays. I mean, he hits everything, and super happy for him to get paid. But I would be a little bit concerned that we're going to have a regression to the mean, especially offensively for him.
Guys, are you surprised we haven't seen any hockey trades right now? It just seems like there's a lot of teams that thought they were going to be better than they have been. You know, I'll mention Toronto, along with Vancouver, obviously, and Edmonton. You know, mostly the Canadian teams. It just seems like these are teams that are not looking to trade a player for a prospect. So why not? Why haven't we seen any hockey trades? I'll put that out there to either one of you.
Yeah. I think because everybody's still in it, you know, other than
They're out of it and in it.
Nashville. Yeah. Like there's a couple of teams, like I think even if you're Toronto right now and you're sitting at the bottom of the East, there's still going to be a part of you that says like, well, we're super banged up right now. Like as soon as our guys get healthy, we could certainly make a run. Whether that's true or not remains to be seen. But there's a lot of teams that are in that boat where they say like, you know, we're only like 4 points out of a playoff spot, even though there's 6 teams ahead of us. So I think that's the big reason is most teams probably don't feel like they're out of it yet.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mirage, I would imagine. Some other names that are floating around there. I think we are going to see a trade in the next week or so. St. Louis's Jordan Binnington, who's having just a miserable year. I think he really needs to get going if he expects to kind of win a gold medal for Canada. Calgary's Nazem Kadri, Rasmus Andersson, feels like these names have been mentioned for over a year now. And Buffalo's Alex Tuch, just a couple of the other. Drew, of that group, and you can feel free to add another guy if you want. Who do you think is going to get traded, and where would you like to see them go?
I mean, I think based off of their contract status, I think Rasmus Andersson is probably the guy that's for sure going to go. He's only making $4.5 million. He's going to be a UFA at the end of the year, and Calgary's a dumpster fire, so I'm sure they're looking to maximize the return that they get there. And I think that, I mean, obviously any team that's going to be trading for him and giving up a lot for him is going to want to kind of have an extension worked out in place, and he's a great player. From a fan standpoint, I'd love to see Jordan Binnington end up in Edmonton. They obviously need a goalie, and I just think that putting him in the spotlight there. So I'd love to see that. In terms of if I was a team who could win, I mean, I would love to see Kadri go back to maybe Toronto. He obviously has a couple more years left on his deal, so it's a bit more of a tricky situation, but I think he's only making $7 million, so I think that that's a very reasonable cap hit for what he can still bring.
How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, so Rasmus Andersson, I wonder if Dallas would be interested because their defense is very top heavy. Thomas Harley's, struggling a little bit, when it comes to the analytics and the under the hood numbers. And I think Rasmus, the Dallas is clearly, a team with Stanley Cup aspirations. I would love to see Andersson there, get them one more puck mover, just make them kind of bulletproof back there. Alex Tuch, I think, would be a great fit in New Jersey. We've talked a lot about the Devils, and they have some awesome weapons up front, but not a lot of size necessarily. Alex Tuch obviously has size. He's a spirited guy. He's a great leader, and obviously, he can give you some scoring punch on the wing. And with Kadri, I wonder if Utah would kick the tires because the Mammoth are in the hunt. They've got Logan Cooley playing so well, but just to bolster things down the middle. And, to open things up where, especially when you're playing at home and you can match lines, Kadri can take on the tough assignments and let Cooley kind of do his thing offensively. And then obviously they have Schmaltz as well, who's been playing so well. But I wonder, Kadri, because he can be that perfect third line center, he can be your second line center too. But, could he maybe push them into the playoffs when it comes down to it? And I got to say, Drew, I love Binnington to Edmonton simply for the headlines. and the drama that it could create, either good or bad. Like, he could be lights out and amazing, or if he falters, then it's just like Stuart Skinner 2.0.
Yeah, that is a high wire act waiting to happen, guys.
Love it.
I want to see it too. I want to see Bidding there. I also want to see San Jose, get rewarded for the start that Celebrini and even like the entire team is kind of having. Kadri to San Jose. Maybe that doesn't sound so crazy. All right. Speaking of teams that are probably out of it, Nashville. What a couple of years they are having. There was a report, and Barry Trotz, the GM, has denied this report coming from Frank Saravelli that there is culture issues within the Predators dressing room, saying, I know what toxic is, and this isn't it. Obviously, something is wrong there, but Nashville's now lost 7 of 8 games, and they're en route to missing the playoffs again. For Ryan, like, how concerned are you about what's going on in Nashville?
I mean, I'd be very concerned if I was a Preds fan, because, we knew last year was a huge disappointment where, they quote unquote won the summer with Stamkos and Marchessault and Brady Shea, and then they flopped. I'd be very concerned because, we've already heard from Ryan O'Reilly and how, sort of, upset he is and beside himself as to how things have gone. And we've seen this before with Ryan O'Reilly when he was in Buffalo. He's kind of the canary in the coal mine. Like, when you lose Ryan O'Reilly, that means that like things are really bad. And it's like we've seen that with the Sabres ever since he left. As for Trotz's comments, the only thing that I thought of was like, he was like, he's like, I know toxic. This isn't toxic. It's like, when did you know toxic? Like, what team are you talking about where things had gone so dramatically wrong? Like, now I'm curious, is like, was it
Wait, what a
Islanders? Yeah.
You want to up in Washington, so it's not the Capitals.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm very intrigued. But yeah, I mean, something's got to give there. And, so with some of those contracts, it would be difficult to move, but I mean, what do you do, right? Like, this is 2 years in a row that you've flopped under Trotz's stewardship. So, I mean, either he's got to figure something out or he's got to find a scapegoat.
Yeah. And why that scapegoat is not Andrew Burnett just completely escapes me, other than they're just kind of like digging in their heels at this point, saying, yeah, you all think he's going to be the reason that, we're going to turn this around, or he's the reason why things are not going well. No, we're going to keep him. Drew, you've been in a lot of dressing rooms. I don't want to assume that you've been in toxic dressing rooms, but let's just say, how important is dressing room culture to the success of a team, either for like good or bad?
I mean, it's super important. And I think one thing that I can't put my finger on that's so surprising about this is they brought in so many high character guys. And that's why I think makes this whole situation even more. I mean, Steven Stamkos obviously knows how to build and run a culture with the success that he's had. Ryan O'Reilly, same thing. I mean, Roman Yossi's a great leader. So I think the thing that's so surprising for me is that this is going on within a locker room that has so many high quality people and players. And I think that certainly bringing in some of the guys, yes, the guys were getting older, but a team with Ryan O'Reilly, Roman Josi, Steven Stamkos, Marchessault, like, they shouldn't be I don't think they're a cup contending team, but they shouldn't be missing the playoffs. And I think that, how this works in sports. I think that you can dig your heels in, but eventually it's easier to fire your coach than blow up your whole roster.
Yeah. If this was happening in a Canadian market, this team and what's going on in the room would be making headlines daily. And if this was like the New York Rangers, reporters would be having a field day. The Predators are almost lucky that they play in Nashville. Like, it just seems like such a mess from obviously the results speak for themselves, but now we're starting to hear, like what Ryan said, like the canary in the coal mine is going off with Ryan O'Reilly spouting off, and now this report that things are toxic. It's not what you usually associate with a team like Nashville, where I don't want to say they're a non-traditional market, but they are not a big market team. Like I said, if this was happening in Vancouver, oh boy, you think things are bad there now. So definitely a team to keep an eye on. I think there's lots of trades that are going to be happening. I think we've talked a lot about them. Two teams that I didn't expect to be in the position that they are in right now. I thought they would be with the Nashville Predators and the Vancouver Canucks, frankly, right now. Pittsburgh Penguins and the Boston Bruins, along with the Capitals. These are kind of teams that are in the mushy middle, if you want to call them. I would say the Bubble Boys, the Capitals, and the Bruins right now are holding down the two wildcard spots in the East. The Penguins are only 1 point back. Drew, of these three teams, are we expecting two or one or none of them to be in the playoff spot when all is said and done?
I'm going to come out here with a hot take, and I think all three make it. I think that I thought Boston was going to have a rebound season just because it felt like every single thing went as bad as it possibly could have. Now it looks like, unfortunately for them, that could be happening again. I think they just lost their best defenseman for, I'm not sure how long he's going to be out. But I just thought their goaltending was going to be better this year. A new coach was going to bring them energy. And then, I think the best story out of all of these is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like I think we even talked about it on this podcast, that where those two superstars could potentially end up at the deadline. And now it's going to be fun to watch if they have to bring guys in and maybe give them an extra push.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Nazem Kadri to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Morgan Geekie has been the story in Boston for me. Like that guy, all he does is score goals, and it just, maybe he's a bit underrated still with how much he can score. How about you, Ryan? Are you on Team Drew with all three teams eventually making the playoffs?
I don't know about all three, but I could certainly see two of them because, they are competing against each other for wild card spots. It's very interesting because, in the Atlantic, it seems to be a different top three every 4 or 5 days, right? And again, Florida is still, without Matthew Tkachuk. So, what are the Panthers going to look like once they get slightly healthier and get a key guy back? I know we're going to talk about Ottawa and Brady Tkachuk soon, but, these are teams that, they have their flaws, they have their strengths, but you're right. They are the sort of mushy middle where, actually with all three, they have been cup contenders in the past, and they've gotten into, a little bit of a trough when it comes to Boston and Pittsburgh last year. Washington obviously, had more success than we expected last season as Ovi went for the record and got it. But I think they're all going to be in the mix. But I also think that the Eastern Conference is going to be so fascinating, down the stretch because so many teams are in it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you mentioned Ottawa, Ryan, and the Senators are hoping to get Brady Tkachuk back in the lineup. The plan was to get him playing before American Thanksgiving. Obviously, the Sens play the Vegas Golden Knights on Wednesday, which is the day that we're recording. Then they play the St. Louis Blues on Black Friday. Good news for the Senators is they've been playing well without Brady Tkachuk in the lineup. They've gone 10-5-4. That is a huge boost, you got to imagine, when they get their captain back. Let's start with Ryan here. The Senators currently sitting, third in I think they're just outside of the Atlantic Division this morning. What is this going to do for them? When you play that well without your captain?
Oh, it's massive. It's such a confidence booster for the rest of the team where they say, look, when a guy goes down, it's next man up. Even if that guy's Brady Tkachuk, who's our captain and, a bit of a unicorn power forward right now in the NHL. So when you bring him back into the lineup, then all of a sudden you're getting somebody that is going to give you everything he has every night and be a difference maker and be an intimidator. So for Ottawa, I think that stretch was the adversity that they had to overcome this season, and they've done it. So now it's a matter of, all right, let's keep building on this. We've got our main guy back. Let's just keep the party started or keep the party rolling.
Drew, I'm sure you've been on teams where the top dog has been out and then he comes back. Is there sometimes a natural inclination for the other guys to be like, all right, he's back now, we can just kind of coast and let him take over?
Yeah, I think there is. And I mean, I want to give a lot of credit to the players in that room because I didn't think they'd be able to do this without Brady Tkachuk, to be honest. And I think that the opportunity, though, is when a guy does go down like that, everyone obviously gets bumped up in the lineup. So it provides guys with probably opportunities that they wouldn't have had. And a lot of their players have stepped up and taken advantage of those.
Well, a team that hasn't been playing well without their captain, hasn't been playing well just in general this year, Toronto Maple Leafs. Good news is Auston Matthews is expected to make his return to the lineup after missing the last 5 games with what we think is a lower body injury, but with how cloak and dagger the Leafs are with their injury reporting, who knows what it is. They play the Columbus Blue Jackets today. It's in the midst of a 5-game road trip. I'm sure they're happy to be away from the road or from home with the way they've been playing. Drew, 1 win without their captain in the lineup. How important is it that Matthews is coming back now? And, what are you expecting from him? Does he got to be the savior? Does he got to score like 2 goals a night and just start leading the way that, he's being paid to lead?
I think he does. I just don't think that they're good enough. I mean, they were struggling with him in the lineup, playing pretty well. So when you take him out of the lineup, they're in big trouble. And I think that that's kind of what the last 4 or 5 games without him have showed. And I think that, I think he's got 7 or 8 goals so far in the season. So he's on about a 40 goal pace. I think the shocking thing for me there is I think he has 1 power play goal. And they have enough talented players to have a good power play. And I think that it's shocking with how bad their power play has been. And I think for them, the way that they play, they don't defend very well. Their goaltending is not great. So you need a power play that can kind of overcompensate some of those things. And they just haven't had that this year. But getting one of the best goal scorers back in the league is definitely going to hopefully improve that.
Yeah, funny stat. I read this the other day. The Leafs are scoring more goals this year than they did last year. And that's with Matthews out of the lineup. And that's after losing Mitch Marner. So go figure. I think it all begins with their defense and their goaltending right now. And Ryan, obviously Matthews is a 2-way guy. He's a guy that we thought when all is said and done is probably going to add a Selke trophy to his hardware case. What are the expectations? And, can Matthews be enough to kind of turn this little skid around?
Well, he needs to be. And the problem right now with Matthews, and it has been for the past sort of like year and a half, 2 years, is like when he comes back from these injuries, is like, is he actually 100%? Like, we never know. And it seems like he's not, like, where was that Auston Matthews that was like challenging for 70 goals in one season? Like, we haven't seen him since then. And you're right about the 2-way play. His 2-way play can be fantastic. And we've seen it at times this season where he's been an absolute demon, especially on the penalty kill. And he uses his body more than he used to, when he's defending. But he only had 14 points in his first 17 games this year. And Drew, you're right about the goals. But in terms of points, like if he's only like a 65, 70 point guy, assuming it was like an 82 game pace, which obviously it's not because he's missed games. Like, that's not good enough for Auston Matthews. Like, he's supposed to be one of the best players in the world, whether or not Mitch Marner is there. So I do think that he really needs to, kind of shoot out of the gates here for Toronto. And who knows? I don't think it's too late for them to make a playoff push because there is so much more hockey to be played. But I think the next couple of weeks are going to be a tremendous bellwether as to whether they can do it.
Yeah, Ryan, you mentioned they're not completely out of it. It's so funny how the standings work out because the Leafs are only 4 points out of a wild card spot. They're far away from being the top team in the NHL. Obviously, right now they're currently the worst team in the East. Next 5 games are on the road, and you said this next little while could be kind of a litmus test or bellwether test for how they are. What happens if they have just a miserable 5 games on the road? Are we expecting Craig Berube's job to be in jeopardy, or do we see a trade happening first?
I don't think that Craig Berube is going to be the first one to go there. I think he kind of has the trump card from his experience in St. Louis of, hey, we were dead last. I don't remember the standings being this tight. I mean, we talked about how bad of a start Tampa Bay had, and then all of a sudden they win 4 or 5 games, and now they're one of the best teams in the league again, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that Toronto can do that. So I don't think, but if they do have a miserable road trip, I see that situation going different where they make a couple moves before making a coaching change.
Yeah, I agree. And I do wonder too, because we've seen a good amount of injuries. I don't know if it's the same pace as always, but I wonder, obviously the schedule is a bit more condensed this year because of the Olympic break in February. I wonder if that's why we see so much parity or mediocrity, if you want to call it that, is teams are playing so many games in a slightly, tighter timeline. I wonder if that's where it's like, back-to-backs or whatever, whatever it happens to be, that you're seeing teams losing games they would typically win or the other way around. I would agree. I think Berube is all right. I also wonder too, like Toronto traded away their first round pick, but it is top 5 protected for 2026. So is it possible, if things are still going miserable, that maybe they sell off a couple of assets and say, you know what, if we got like a Gavin McKenna or Keaton Verhoff or Ivor Stenberg, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. Like Gavin McKenna, his playmaking ability, it's kind of similar to Mitch Marner. He doesn't have the defense yet, but he's also 17. Like Gavin McKenna playing with Auston Matthews wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
A 1 year, what do you call it? A reset, a retool? I love it.
1 year reset.
Yeah. Who did that? Was that Boston that did that a number of years ago? They just like stunk for 1 year.
Yeah.
Picked up, I think it was that year where they picked up those 3 first rounders and only hit on one of them. But
they blew it. All the picks. Yeah.
They blew it, but they still had them.
They could have had like Matt Barzal, Thomas Chabot, and like
Kyle Connor.
Instead, they ended up with, I think Alex DeBrincat was the only guy they.
No. It was Zach Senyshyn, Jake DeBrusk, and Jakub Zaboral.
Yeah, I always get Jake DeBrusk and Alex DeBrincat. All right, speaking of prospects, this is Ryan's favorite time of year, I'm sure. The CHL and the National Team Development Program, their little head case showcase series went last night. And the NTDP, I always struggle with that, guys, won 4-2 over the CHL's best. Last year, the CHL swept the series. So let's start with Ryan here. Impressions from last night's game. Obviously, no Gavin McKenna because he's in the NCAA, but CHL still has a number of guys that you probably expect to go in the first round, right?
For sure. It was a very interesting game because, this version of the NTDP had really struggled. They were 5-16 on the year heading into this game. And I had seen them live against, Niagara University. They did not look very much like a threat, but I do believe they played some international games recently. I think that might have been a turning point for them because they actually got a couple of wins, and then they followed it up with a couple of wins in the USHL against Chicago. So it's starting to come together, and the advantage the NTDP has is these kids have played together every game for a year and a half already. Whereas with the CHL, they're like an all-star team. They've maybe played with each other at like the Hlinka or the U18s, but they don't have the chemistry. So you could tell that in the first game last night. What's interesting to me is that when I think about this year's draft, we know there's not a lot of centers. There's a lot of great wingers headlined by Gavin McKenna. You got Ethan Belchetz as well, Ivor Stenberg from Sweden. But, watching that first game, it occurred to me that I think there's going to be a lot of defensemen with the potential to go in the top 10. Keaton Verhoff didn't play because he's at the University of North Dakota, but like Chase Reed with Sault Ste. Marie in the OHL, he's got some size. He's a gorgeous skater and has some really good offense to his game. He was the standout in the first game. Carson Karls from Prince George, I think he showed off really well. Another player that can sort of do everything and has size and skating. Guys like Daxton Rudolph and Ryan Lynn, both from the WHL, I think they have an opportunity to be in the mix for top 10 or at least sort of top 12. So it will be interesting to see how it breaks down positionally when the draft actually happens, because I don't think it's going to be what we traditionally see, which is like, 6 or 7 centers in the top 10, because they're just not there this year, right? It's basically Caleb Malhotra and Tynan Lawrence would be the centers that I would be comfortable going in the top 10. So yeah, for me, a very interesting game to watch. And also Brady Noling was the star of the show in net for the NTDP. I think he could be the first goalie off the board. I think he could be a first rounder because he is like 6'4". And then, guys like Casey Mutrin, Luke Shire, Mikey Burchild, maybe they sneak into the first round as well for the NTDP.
Interesting. It wasn't too long ago, Drew, that you were playing for the NTDP. Back in 2008, 2009, around there.
Yep.
You didn't have the option. There wasn't this kind of showcase challenge. How much would you have loved to have played against the CHL? Was that sort of, when you look back and you're like, that would have been nice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an awesome event. I'm super happy that they decided to end up doing it together. And I think that, you got to give credit to guys like Ryan, because I think one of the hardest things during this draft process is to just evaluate players who are playing at such different levels. And I think that that's super hard to do. I mean, you have a guy playing 9 minutes a game professional hockey in Sweden versus a kid who's playing in the Quebec Major Junior League who's playing 30 minutes a night. So they don't have a lot of opportunities to not all those guys, but a lot of them get on the same ice. And I think that it's a very short event. So I know that people put a lot of stock, and it could be an off night for a guy or two. And it's a tough event for the CHL guys just because they have no chemistry. They've never played together. So the NTDP should be winning these games and winning them pretty easily. So I would have loved to have played in the event.
Yeah, for a lot of Canadian hockey fans, this is their only chance to really see who's playing for the NTDP before, I guess, the World Juniors. So it really is a showcase for them. Listen up, hockey fans. For over 75 years, the Hockey News has been the ultimate hockey fix. Now get 12 issues delivered straight to you, packed with stories, stats, and a bonus gift issue to kick things off. Head over to thn.com and get in on the action. And with that, we go to the action of rapid fire. Let's go here, boys. All right. Question number 1. Who is your dark horse pick to make Team Canada, Ryan?
I'm going to go with Matthew Schaefer. I know we've talked about him a lot, and I know he's only 18, but if you look at the options on defense, why wouldn't you take him? Kid's got poise. He's one of the top scoring defensemen in the league, and I feel like he could rise to the occasion.
Drew?
I'm going to go with Morgan Geekie.
Yeah.
I actually don't think he's going to make the team, but he's a good friend of mine, and it's been cool to just kind of watch his evolution in the league and get off to the start that he's gotten off to. Boston, he's pretty much carried that team through 10 or 15 of these 20 games so far. So I don't think he's going to end up making the team, but I think it's cool that he's even putting himself in that position from where he was a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's funny. He plays for the Bruins, and yet I would argue that he might be the most underrated player in the NHL this season. As our producer Sam mentions, Morgan Geekie is currently tied with Nathan MacKinnon with most goals in the NHL with 17. Wow. How many NHL fans would be able to tell you that Geekie has as many goals as MacKinnon this year?
Yeah, totally.
Probably not a lot. All right. We talked about the Predators early on. Nashville said that the price for moving Ryan O'Reilly would be a first-round pick plus an A-level prospect. Drew, too high or just right enough?
I think it's too high, but I don't think they're going to come out and say they're going to move him for an average prospect and a first-round pick. So, that's not surprising. But I think it's going to be interesting to watch because they're clearly in a blow up the whole thing situation. And they do have a lot of pieces that I think it's funny how this works. These guys who have been struggling for so long, I don't know if he gets out of there, but I think if Stamkos was to go play on a good team, I think he could easily get back to being the 30 goal, 70, 80 point guy on a good power play with some good players. So it'll be interesting to see where this unfolds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can ask for a first rounder and A-level prospect. You're not going to get a first rounder and A-level prospect for Ryan O'Reilly, who, has been in the league so long that he doesn't need to wear a visor. He's like one of the only guys left. It's like him, Jamie Benn, and Ryan Reeves. I think he's still a valuable asset to a playoff team, but I think you would get either a first rounder or an A-level prospect for Ryan O'Reilly and be happy with it, because you'll probably have a top 3 pick yourself with your own selection. So that other pick you get, if it is the first rounder, even if it's 28, 29, 31, it's an asset that you can play with.
No, I agree. I think Ryan O'Reilly back like in 2020 was worth a first rounder when he was coming off a Stanley Cup win, but he's not the same player. I know he's still good in the faceoff circle, but yeah, he's not going to be playing top line minutes anymore. Like or dislike, Dallas Stars' new alternate jerseys that were inspired by their 1999 Stanley Cup champion sweaters with like a little insignia about the 3 overtime on the inside. Ryan, you're a jersey hound. Did you kind of like the throwbacks?
I like them. There's only so much that Dallas can do with those particular like logos and word marks. Like there's not a lot of wiggle room there. So they're nice. It didn't blow my mind, but the nod to the overtimes, that's pretty nice.
Have you, Drew?
I agree.
Did you see the jersey?
Yeah, I did, and I liked them. I think that, Dallas is playing great too. We didn't really talk about that, but they've had a lot of injuries, especially on their back end. They've had some guys step up and play really well, and I think that, they've had, I don't know about the man games lost, but they've had Duchesne. They've had a lot of guys out. Jamie Benn just coming back, and they still finding ways to win games. So I like the jerseys, and they're playing well. They crushed Edmonton.
Doesn't like the jerseys.
Yeah.
Anyone in Buffalo does not like those jerseys.
Yeah, true.
Too soon. All right. Who do you blame the most for the Oilers' rough start? Stuart Skinner, who was pulled after allowing 4 goals last night, just having a wreck of a season. Marty Braun says the room no longer has faith in their starting goalie. Or GM Stan Bowman. Drew, who's to blame?
I think you have to go with the goaltending there, because Stuart Skinner has enough talent to win hockey games, especially during the regular season of the NHL. I don't think he was the guy clearly who they were going to win the Stanley Cup with, but I think he's a guy that should be playing at a much higher level. So if I was the GM, I would have been comfortable going into the season with him, especially for the first 20 or 40 games and kind of seeing where we're at. Now, with everything that's gone on, I think that decision is definitely changing. And so let's get Jordan Binnington up to Edmonton.
How about you, Ryan? Aside from Jordan Binnington coming to Edmonton, who would you blame for what's going on right now?
I kind of blame the defense. It kind of reminds me of that like LeBron meme where he's like pointing, like, what are you doing? Because they give up so many high danger chances, and Skinner doesn't stop enough of them. But I suppose, in this equation, Stan Bowman needs to figure out that defense. You got a whole season and you got McDavid and Draisaitl, and we've seen Edmonton play terrible in the fall before. So there's time for them to pull out of this. But I do think they need to figure out, like, okay, like, do we have the team defense to actually make another run and, give Stuart Skinner a chance? Because if we don't, we see the result. And we can't assume that Stuart Skinner's going to steal games for us, because clearly, he's going through it right now. This is one of those, like, this is like the bottom for Stuart Skinner, but there are some big highs that we've also seen. So I think they got to figure out team defense before anything.
A crazy stat that I saw the other day that I couldn't believe, and I had all players go through some bad runs, but Brett Kulak is a very good NHL defenseman. I think he's on a run of like 19 goals against and hasn't been on the ice for one, or it was like an all-time over like a 4 or 5 game stretch. I think he had been on the ice for 19 goals against before. And the craziest thing is he's a good player. So, I think everything that could go wrong is going wrong on that back end. And like Ryan said, I think that, yes, it's easy to blame Skinner, but I mean, the chances that they are giving up on a nightly basis is insane.
Yeah, and it's not just Edmonton. I looked at this stat here. 5 of the worst 9 teams in save percentage are all based in Canada, guys. So, it might explain why only Ottawa is currently holding down a playoff spot right now. Oilers are dead last in team save percentage. So, yeah, I think something needs to change. I don't know. Maybe Binnington coming there is just going to make things worse. But, I'm all for it because Binnington is
Make it entertaining.
Yeah, he's entertaining. And listen, the big show is nothing but entertaining as well. And this was a great one, guys. Thanks again to Drew Shore. Thank you, Ryan Kennedy. And I'm going to do what Ryan did last time, and I'm going to thank myself as well. We'll see you next time, guys.